Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, maybe, to any international viewers. Welcome to this seminar, The Swedish Way, Next Generation Batteries Through Collaboration and Trust. My name is Göran Stegrin. I work for the Swedish Energy Agency. I am a business developer for international markets. And with me today, I have three distinguished experts that will give you a tour of the Swedish way of innovation. I would like to start with something that's pretty new. 2 days ago, IPCC released a report that showed basically we are in trouble if we do not change our ways of using fossil energy. We have about 7 years to go. We have to decrease our emissions with 50% for the upcoming 7 years. Right now, we're on track for 3.2 degrees global warming. So it's urgent. We have to act now. And how to do this? We and many others think electrification is a key. And the key to this is batteries and energy storage. And this is what this event will focus on. Batteries, we have it today, but there are still challenges. Cost, even though the cost has been brought down from, I think, 1991 until now, it's 97%. But it's still about $150 per kilowatt hours. It should come down to 100 to be really competitive to internal combustion engines. We have the recycling. There are technologies today that could be improved by innovation, by commercialization. We have the raw material, lithium, for instance. It's predicted that it will be about 30 to 60 times the demand of the current situation by 2050. So there is a huge number of issues that needs to be solved, and innovation plays a crucial part in this. Innovation, when you look upon Sweden, the Nordic countries, we usually tends to be on top, among the top 5 or top 10, usually. So how do we do this? How do we really go forward to solve this vital question? I would like to just make a quote from the IPCC chairman. His name is Hoo Song Lee. And how to move forward? He mentioned a couple of keywords: sharing benefits and burdens, recognition, and this is the thing that this event revolves around: trust and collaboration. So I would like to introduce the first speaker, Mrs. Louise Bringfeldt. She is PhD assistant professor in management studies at Lund University and research fellow at Stockholm School of Economics. Please, Louise, take it away.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Louise Bringselius, and I'm, as Göran just said, I'm an associate professor in management studies. And I wanted to talk to you about trust, because this is a key asset in Sweden driving innovation. And this is a key asset in any country and any organization that wishes to be more innovative, flexible, adaptive to a complex environment. And I want to talk to you about the trust breach that we have in society today, or the trust crisis, basically. Because I have been, for a number of years, the head of research at a government commission called the Trust Commission, Tillitsdelegationen in Swedish. And the Trust Commission, yes, this commission provided recommendations for policymakers and officials in the Swedish administration as concerns matters of leadership and governance based on a huge body of international research. And the aim was to understand how we can build trust in society and also in our organizations. Since many years, trust-based management has been a cornerstone in the yearly fiscal budget in Sweden, and state agencies are today required to implement this principle in their daily operations. 60% of Swedish municipalities today work with trust-based management. And why is this? Why has Sweden launched a trust reform? Sweden is known for its high trust a high general trust in society. But what is happening today is that we are also moving into the organization area to say that trust is also a cornerstone in Swedish organizations, in the Swedish administration and in corporations. This is a strong tradition in the Swedish society and also in Swedish business. But why do we need a trust reform today? Why do we need to talk more than ever about trust? Well, there are a number of trends in organizations that we found in our research across the globe. First, we found that there is an emerging audit society, an audit society with too much focus on measuring and control, reporting, and a growing bureaucracy, a growing administrative burden as a consequence from this strong focus on audit, inspection, evaluation, and so on. And the word Audit Society, this was launched in 1997 by Michael Power in a well-renowned book called The Audit Society, Rituals of Verification. The second trend is that there is too much authority, too much focus on the line of command, that people should align in this line of command. Third, there are too many standardized processes that employees are required to adhere to, focus on compliance. There are many manuals, policies, guidelines, and the idea is that everyone should do exactly the same way at work. And this means that there is very little flexibility for different needs and different requirements among customers, clients in different contexts, because the idea is that everyone must do the same. Very much focus on standardization. The fourth trend is a focus on blame and blame avoidance, scapegoating, self-preservation. Focus on who has done something wrong and how can this be punished. And this builds fear in organizations, this focus on blaming mistakes and faults that we make, instead of using these for learning. The next trend is a lack of collaboration in the systems perspective, where people work focused on a small area of responsibility rather than looking at the whole system. Where do we need to go together? What is our shared aim, our purpose? The purpose that calls to our inner motivation. And finally, I would also like to mention that there is a lack of care and understanding. There is too much suspicion in today's organizations, an instrumental approach to people. And this is partly the result from the other trends, where there is very much focus on compliance and fine scapegoating. So what is the shared denominator of these trends? What we researchers say is that there is a lack of trust in the judgment of people, a lack of trust in both clients and employees on the street level employees. So a lack of trust in organizations is hampering today's organizations across the whole world, and in particular in the Western society. In the public sector, we call this new public management. Some of these trends, this is a concept we often use, emanating from Christopher Hood in 1991. But these trends is something that we also find in the private sector. So this hampers innovation. And in this regard, Sweden has an edge because we have a strong tradition with trust in our organizations. And this is what can partly explain our strong performance in innovation. I will give you some examples. So first, have a look at the figure, the person to the left in this image. Perhaps someone can recognize who it is. This is Per G. Gyllenhammar. He was a CEO of Volvo Cars for many years, and he started a new way of business, a new way of doing, the production, to change the production procedure. So rather than working with a small responsibility, a small thing that you were responsible for, he started teams, autonomous teams, and said that the workers will find this more motivating to work in teams together with a large autonomy. And these workers were allowed to shift tasks between themselves so they could choose who would do what this day, and they would learn from each other. And Per G. Gyllenhammar did this in close collaboration with the unions. The next example is the Swedish tech industry. This says the Swedish tech wonder is the heading here from the Swedish book. And this is like Klarna, there's Spotify, there's Fremfab. There are a number of companies here that have been very successful. And there is a shared denominator in all these cases, and it is that they have flat organizations and that they are very trustful towards their employees. They listen and they trust their employees. They are prepared to give them autonomy, to allow them to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and move forward. So a growth mindset is something we often call this today. And on the international global scene, we can find Apple, Google, Microsoft, and so on with the same mindset. We can learn a lot from the tech industry and their way of trusting people. And the next example is actually the military, the armed forces, where in the whole Western world, there is a philosophy that is called mission command, I think in English, uppdragstaktik in Swedish. And this means that you focus on the mission, what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve this, but you allow soldiers on the field to act independently, to use their judgment on the field, because you know that we can never know what will happen out there in a complex situation such as war and so on. And the final example is the Swedish tax authority. Well, what are they doing here? They are an example of a state agency that has moved from a very narrow focus on control and finding people who have done mistakes to focus on helping people do things the right way, to assisting people and assuming that they want to do the right thing. And this does not mean that they are not controlling, they're not checking them. It is a focus on both of these factors. So what are the effects from trust? Well, here is a quote from Paul Zak, who is a professor of management in the US. And he says, employees in high trust organizations are more productive, have more energy at work, collaborate better with their colleagues, and stay with their employers longer than people working at low trust companies. They also suffer less chronic stress and are happier with their lives. And these factors fuel stronger performance. Well, there are a number of benefits with trust, and what we need to be aware of is that there is also a cost. Trust comes with risk. This means that there will be mistakes. Things will not always be perfect. We need to accept that innovation requires trust. Innovation and collaboration requires trust, but trust also requires that we are accepting risk and that we are able to accept mistakes that are made and learn from those without finding a scapegoat to point at. Dear friends, this is my message to you. Build trust and be aware that this is something that's also affecting the way that we work with governance, processes, contracts, all the structural matters. And this is not only a relational aspect. This means that you can use trust as a principle for anything you do in your organization. This is also why we use the concept trust-based management in Sweden and several other countries. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Louise. It's been really interesting to listen to you. Just one practical thing, we have a chat. We don't have any time for discussion or questions, so if you have questions or would like to get in touch with any of the speakers, please put your name and question in the chat, and we'll get back to you. This was a speech from someone living in Sweden. But now I would like to introduce Mr. William Brandt. He's an international. He's not that biased, hopefully. He is talking about an international finding a place in the Swedish ecosystem. And he is associate professor at Uppsala University. So, please, William, tell us your story.
Thank you very much, Johan, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story to everyone here today. So my goal here is to give a bit of an overview of why I first chose to come to Sweden in the first place, and then why I am still here and choosing to stay. So in order to sort of give a setting to all of this, I thought I would just introduce where I have come from and my background, and then what led me here, so really my journey. So I am Australian. I came from Australia. I grew up there. I did my undergraduate and my PhD. And my training is in materials chemistry. So I really like designing new materials for applications, so functional materials. And the challenge that I encountered towards the end of my PhD, I really love this area, so working on materials. And I realized that, and in conversation with people, that if I wanted to continue on this road, I would need to go abroad because Australia is very far away from the rest of the world, and there's a strong drive to bring in new ideas from abroad. So given the limited opportunities there, I needed to go abroad. So I had to make a decision about where to go. And at this point, there were 3 opportunities for me in the US, in Germany, and in Sweden. But I eventually chose to come to Sweden. And this was not shot out of the blue. This was based on experience. So during my PhD, I came to Sweden on an exchange. It was actually part of an exchange where I spent some time in Germany and then a week in Sweden. And my first experience in coming to the research group at Uppsala University was that it was diverse. It was a very welcoming environment. I felt like I was already part of the team when I arrived. And I had a very particular reason for being there. I had a challenge that I had to solve, and it had been causing quite a bit of a headache up until that point. But when I came there, people were willing to help. And there was this strong collaborative drive, and I think I got more done in a week in that lab than I had in a month up until that point. So that was, first impression, 1 week at Uppsala University. So naturally, when I was offered a job in the same group, I said yes. So I moved across the globe, almost opposite ends of the planet, to pursue this opportunity because of that really positive first impression that I had over there. So I'm now based at Uppsala University, associate professor as mentioned. I started as a postdoctoral researcher. And the question is, okay, that first impression that I had of Sweden and working in a research environment at Uppsala University, did it continue? And the answer is very much yes. There is a very strong collaborative environment, a huge research team, because batteries are incredibly complex devices, and you need diverse teams, not just on experience, but of backgrounds, to solve this very challenging problem. And the nice thing that I found, and this was mentioned before, is that generally speaking, at least at the university, and I guess it's similar in other industries too, is this flat hierarchy or flat structure. And this meant that, sure, I did have a supervisor or a boss, and they had certain expectations of me, but the flat structure meant that I could talk to anybody about questions that I had, about ideas that I wanted to pursue. If someone was working in an area and they would talk openly about what they were doing, and I would say, actually, that's really interesting. I want to see how I can apply what you're doing to what I'm working on. And then, you have these chats around the coffee table. It's very open. There's an element of trust in that too. And this collaboration with a flat structure encourages, or rather enables, independence. So I was given the space to grow as a researcher in this group. And I mean, this working in a diverse team, this is very important to me, where people are accepting, and it's all about, you know, the goal at the end, or solving the larger problem, no matter who you are or where you've come from. And so it was in this environment and in this context that, together with two other researchers at Uppsala University, we created a spin-off, Ultras. So Ultras is developing a material for sustainable batteries based only on sodium, iron, carbon, and nitrogen. So we've got a really strong view to sustainability and having low-cost batteries. So we had this idea for the material way back in the beginning, and we were given really free rein in the lab to pursue that idea. It eventually led to a patent, and I guess the unique thing in Sweden, there's not so many places in the world that have this. When we wanted to patent the idea, we were the owners of that idea, which gave us the freedom to create the company in the first place with no strings attached. And not only did we have the freedom to do this, I also could allocate a certain percentage of my working hours to this. We were also given funding and education in how to set up the company. We had access to networks, InnoEnergy, the Uppsala Innovation Center. There's so many resources to help researchers take their ideas through to fruition. And so this is something that, I mean, I didn't see the same support for small and medium enterprises in Australia. So I think the Ultras journey that we took, coming from just a couple of researchers playing around in the lab to an actual viable company, and all the hurdles that, you know, we were learning along the way too. We made a lot of mistakes, but the support and the trust and the collaboration of the environment that we worked in allowed us to overcome those hurdles. And every time I stop and look back, it's hard to believe we've come this far. So that was then. Now I have a permanent position at the university as an assistant professor. And this, well, as assistant and now associate professor, rather. And this is sort of why I came to Sweden, and why up until now I have been very heavily invested in the innovation ecosystem in Sweden. But looking into the future, I mean, back when I arrived, there were a lot of opportunities, but with initiatives such as WISE and the Swedish Energy Agency supporting both fundamental research and academic industrial collaborations, there is so many things that can be achieved here because of this ecosystem, the fact that I can work together with industry. The ties between industry and the academy is also very strong because of this trust and understanding, and I guess open communication. We each understand what is most important for both the company and for the researchers. We're very clear and transparent about that, and when we have this open dialogue, we can move forward and then do what everybody wants to do, and that's just solve problems and, you know, answer questions and do research. So this has really facilitated both Ultras, but my ongoing work together with other companies in Sweden as well. So with that, I just want to sort of acknowledge those organizations and funding bodies that have helped me come this far, and really just want to emphasize that the diversity and the trust and the collaboration is what has led both me and my research team and Ultras to this point. And I really hope that we can continue this way, because it's the fastest way to solving the world's problems. And as Göran mentioned, we don't have much time, so we can't waste time in, you know, with mistrusting each other. We have work to do, and we can only do it together. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, William. Really inspiring speech. So you are part researcher and part businessman now.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're going to stay, hopefully.
Yes, no, there's lots to do.
So we switch to industry. So I would like to introduce Hans Hentzell. He will talk about battery innovation in practice. What will it look like? He's chairman of the board of the company Ligna Energy. So please, Hans.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to talk. And I'll basically continue where William started, seeing that a company that has had some years to run. And it's a company that has developed energy storage based on forest products. And I would also say based on production technology that is often not used in battery technology, but in printing technology to make it very cheap. And it's based on the world-leading research and work at the Linköping University. And I'll first describe some of the innovation system that William talked about. First, we have at Linköping University and in Norrköping, where this is located, a research environment with a university department with about 170 researchers. When an idea is mature enough, it is transferred into the innovation stage, where you have the supporting organizations for that. And I will especially want to point out PEA here, Printed Electronics Arena. That's a research lab, but it's also organized in a way so that new ideas could be tested and small companies could do small volume production to prove that their ideas are working. At the end, companies come into what we call HOPE, that's House of Organic and Printed Electronics, and that's where they should start to grow. Looking at the pipeline here with new companies in this system, in the spin-out phase, still at the university, we have some companies in iontronics, Thin and Sweet Sensor. And iontronics is a biomedical company. In the startup phase, we have Enink, a company producing inks for conducting inks, and they are electrically conducting, and they are stable up to over 200 degrees, so that they could be used in power capacitors or bendable and organic solar cells. In the scale-up phase, there's a company, Cellfion, that has developed a membrane for power cells, for example, that could be based on cellulose from the Swedish forest. There's a company, Epishine, that develop and produce solar cells. Invisense, that has developed a humidity sensor that could be built into buildings, behind the walls in the bathroom, for example, to see if there's a leakage of water. And Ligna Energy, that I will focus on later, that has developed the forest-based batteries. In the mature phase, we have Invisible, Absobest, Oboe IPR, and Redox.me, and the other companies actually delivering products. And Invisible is also used as a contract manufacturer by several of the other companies. One product that Invisible, Epishine, and Ligna decided to develop together is a self-charging wireless Internet of Things temperature and carbon dioxide sensor. This could be placed in any room, and when you put on the light, the solar cell that you see on the top is charging the unit, and the electric energy is stored in the batteries. And when the light is turned off, the unit could work for between 4 and 7 days based on the energy stored in the batteries. This could be used for making smart buildings. The little thickest part here is a carbon dioxide sensor that measures the absolute content of carbon dioxide. Now focusing on Ligna Energy, we could see it's a standard pouch that is used for battery applications. And in this, we have the collectors in metal and a forest-based electrode. Between those, there is a membrane, and all of them is included in a pouch. The interesting thing here is that the production could be done in open air. There's no parts where you need to have a special environment or special gases. And that makes the production very cheap, And that's a part of the IP and the IPR in the company is also the production process, not only how we design the electrode materials. We expect that the price of this would be between $1 and $1.50. Of course, an interesting battery based on forest products need to have a market, otherwise it's not interesting. And the three markets that we have focused on is smart buildings and asset tracking, and smart labels. Smart buildings would require, according to market analysis, around 2025, about 50 million units. And the production that Ligna is setting up will make it possible to produce 5 million units a year. Asset tracking is 170 million units, and smart labels 90 million units. Smart labels is the most fastly growing market, but it also requires a very, very low price for the total system, so it will be challenging. That's why it's important when you do the design of the materials like this, that all materials included need to be very cheap. It could not be expensive, exclusive materials, and the production technology need to be very slim. So, at the end, we have the Ligna Energy batteries, and we expect them to come into products within 6 to 12 months. So, thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Hans. Very interesting and novel way of producing a battery.
Yeah.
We are reaching the end now, and I would like to give a little bit of an overview of the Swedish battery ecosystem. There are a number of key things to mention regarding batteries in Sweden. We do have a strong automotive industry. They are a driver really for electrification. Of course, there are also stationary applications, but moving automotive sector is actually driving the development. And we have that in Sweden. We have world-leading OEMs. We do have active cell manufacturing. And we also have a lot of suppliers in the battery cell value chain. We have mineral deposits, both tapped and untapped, of materials that are crucial to the development of batteries. We do have stable and, thank you, an affordable and most importantly green energy system. And finally, we do have a lot of foreign establishments actually to Sweden that will support the battery sector in Sweden. And in this picture, there are some examples of clusters. Basically, 3 are growing very fast. We have one up north, Rolving Skellefteå. We have one in the south, around Göteborg, with the big OEMs. And we have one around Stockholm area. So there are 3 kind of more commercial activities going on in 3 clusters. I would like to go to the next slide. So this is giving you an overview of the value chain of the lithium-ion battery. And there are a large number of companies, Swedish, international, and of course I'd like to mention also Nordic companies. We have a very strong collaboration with the other Nordic countries. We complement each other extremely well. So this is also something I would like to mention. We have a very strong research and research side, as well as the support sector in the innovation system. This is my final slide. It may be a little bit difficult to read, but this is focusing on batteries and more kind of We're drilling down a little bit now. These are examples of different activities going on in different areas. This is showing 6 different clusters with various specialities. It could be different kind of chemistries, it could be testing, it could be production technology. But these are examples, there are more, of places where cutting-edge technology is currently developing. The slide on the right is basically what and how. If you are interested to learn more about the possibilities in Sweden, to get someone to speak to, this is a map showing where you find various players that will support you. We have incubators and science parks, that's the yellow dots. They are spread quite evenly all over Sweden. They are ready to talk to you if you're interested to know more about Sweden and possibly discuss further engagement. And you also have the regional investment promotion agencies. Those are the blue dots, and they are ready and waiting for you to contact them, and they will support you with next steps in communication. So by this, I think we are done. Any other comments from the other speakers?
Maybe I could add that the Ligna batteries, they can be thrown away as a milk or a juice package. They don't have to be handled separately.
Great. I would like to thank you, all the speakers. I think it's great that you could attend this and share your expertise. And I hope the audience has found bits and pieces of interest. And if you have any questions or anything else, please put them in the chat, or you may also get in touch with me or my partners at Business Sweden, Jessica Olsson or Jakob Lindvall. He is the contact person for Swedish Incubators and Science Park. So with this, I hope I've raised your curiosity about Sweden, and